You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Juniors podcast brought to you by NBA 2K23. I'm Momentcy, as always, alongside me, the one, the only Mr. BJ Armstrong.
What's good? What's good, my man Mo? What's happening?
Hey, man, listen, it's a Friday. It's a beautiful day. I feel like it's time to give the people what they want and answer some more questions that came into the Discord.
Okay.
But first, we got to talk about one issue. Kevin Durant was warming up for his home debut for the Phoenix Suns until he turned his ankle. I don't know if it was a wet spot on the floor or something. He slipped. And now it looks like he's going to be out for the remainder of the season.
Wow.
How are we looking at this, BJ? Because if he does come back for the playoffs, do you think that we all know the greatness of Kevin Durant, but do you think that you'd be able to just plug him back into that team and they go on a historic playoff tear and win a championship? Or do you think we're now looking at the Phoenix Suns for a next year kind of project?
Well, first you always want the health and safety of the players and the people that play the game. So hopefully that he's okay. It didn't look good. I mean, it was a very awkward situation. And I mean, he just turned his ankle. I don't know if it was slippery there or not. However, his ankle just buckled. And it was just a very unusual situation. No one was around or anything. So hopefully he's okay. I'm not sure what the severity of the injury is, and I'm sure at some point Phoenix will give us an update. I guess the one positive sign, he did, dunk and jump on that ankle, after it occurred during the warm-ups, if you saw the video. But it was a very unusual situation, Mo. It was just, and as you get older, things happen, but just like his ankle just buckled. It was I just hope he's okay. I don't like to see any player get hurt. So I just hope he has a speedy recovery. He's fine, that he can play. I know he wants to be out there. I think if I remember correctly, I think that was his home opening.
Yeah.
That was going to be his home opening. So I know he wanted to play. And for that to occur in warm-ups of all places is a very unusual situation.
Well, let's dive into these questions. Cameron Tate has said, Mo, if you could pick any current player to put on the Celtics roster right now, who would it be? Well, I'm assuming it means a player who's not currently on a team, because otherwise I'd just say Giannis. But I want to see Carmelo Anthony, because they signed Danilo Gallinari, who is, of course, is injured as well. And, adding a little veteran scoring off the bench never hurt anyone. And I think just for the vibes in general. Can you think of a player not currently on a team that could be beneficial for the Celtics? Maybe Serge Ibaka for some depth at the big man spot. What do you think, BJ?
Well, I would like to see them add, more toughness to this group, right? And so I thought Jay Crowder or someone like that would be a good fit for them. Just someone who can add another defensive player for this team. I think they have enough scoring. When their bigs are healthy, in particular Rob Williams, they're fine. But I would love to see them add some more defense to the mix, because I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to win the final game of the season. So if you're going to do that, you're going to need talent and you're going to need toughness. I think they have a tough-minded group. I think they have a tough group. But if you could add to that, I think it only helps to do with their depth, because you never know what can happen. An injury can occur. And Jay Crowder would be a guy who could fill in at a variety of positions, because he plays bigger than what he really is.
Well, the Bucks have got him now, so that's off the table. Maybe some Serge Ibaka, who the Bucks let go. But the second part of his question is, if you and BJ could pick any current constructed roster with the aim of winning as much as you can for the next 5 years, who do you take? His take is the Cavs. So we're talking about the next 5 years. So we're talking 2023, 24, 25, 26, 2027. Which team has the chance at the most titles in that 5-year span?
Well, that's a fascinating question, because every year you're going to have a draft and you're going to have to do things. Yeah, so it's really an impossible question, but it's a good question, because you're saying if the team as is, the team as is, I would say probably the Sacramento Kings.
Ooh,
as is, because they have a couple of things that are essential, right? You got to have a guard who plays downhill, and not only does this guard play downhill, talking about De'Aaron Fox. I mean, he's probably, if not the fastest, one of the fastest guards in the league with the ball.
Yep. And he's under contract as well.
Yeah, and then you have Sabonis, who is, I mean, he's dynamite playing this version of what you want a big man to be. He can pass the ball first, and he finishes around the basket, and you can play through him.
He's got 1 year left on his contract after this, and they'll resign. He's only 26. He seems like he's a lot older. He's only 26 years old.
And I think so. Those two, and then of course, the Monk kid has really he's really solidified like what you bring off the bench. So they have some things. Their coaching is excellent. I just think they have a great foundation. If you're looking at a team saying as is, like you don't add anything to it.
Yeah,
but I think this team is I think they're a piece away. Piece or two away for really doing something. I
think the Cavs are a great shout. I think Mobley can make that leap into a star player. Then they're a real serious problem. I think the Grizzlies, if they can figure out their off-court stuff that we discussed earlier this week, with a little bit more time and Jaren Jackson Jr. maturing and not fouling so much, I think they could be a real threat. There's a lot of young talent in the league. But we've got more questions, and we're going to go straight into them. Harry Bridge wants to know, this is a good one, BJ, because it's almost the playoffs. You said you want to start ramping it up. If the game slows down in the playoffs and half-court offense and defense becomes more important, why don't teams play that way in the regular season? Given that the regular season is essentially practicing for the playoffs, wouldn't it make sense to play in a way that translates to winning in the postseason?
Phenomenal question.
Shout out to Harry.
Incredible. Harry, that's an incredible question, incredible observation. And you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So the reason that the regular season has been devalued is because the players know you don't play that way during the regular season.
During the postseason.
Because the postseason, the game slows down. The game is more physical. You value the possessions. So it would only make, sense that you would play this way during the regular season because you value that way so that when you get to the postseason, you are the best at playing that brand of basketball. That's called winning basketball. So, Harry, you're absolutely right.
Well,
nothing gets by you. And why teams don't do that? Well, I think we know why teams don't do that.
Well, I got to say, in the playoffs, you don't have 3 games in 5 nights. You don't have back-to-backs on the road. Like, there are a lot of different factors. When it comes to preparing for a playoff game, it's a much more refined level of detail than preparing for a regular season game. We see regular season games where teams haven't even game planned for the team that they're really going up against.
Okay, so this is an era of pace and space. I'm not sure what you're referring to. This is an era of pace and space. It would only make sense that you would slow the game down and learn how to dictate and impose your will on your pace, which would be a lot slower than getting up and down just shooting threes. We know that you value shot selection better in the postseason. We know we value turnovers. We know we value limiting the team to offensive rebounds. So it would only make sense that you would do that in the regular season.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying what it is.
So if you want to play faster in the postseason, Mo, you be my guest. I mean, but I agree with Harry. Why wouldn't you play away? I mean, it seemed to work. It's the teams that play that way always advance into the playoffs. So it seemed that you would imitate success. But hey,
I mean,
maybe Harry and I are the only people that see that. Maybe Harry and I are the only two guys.
I'm gonna say, for some teams they only
Mo wants to play faster. Mo wants to play faster in the playoffs.
For some teams, they only stop in LA twice a year or once a year, or they only stop in Miami once a year. They want to make the most of their time there, and when it gets to the playoffs, it's a different story. But that's all I'll say on that. The next question, right, BJ, I got to give a shout out to Mr. Jago 1969. The reason being, he sent me a message on Instagram that he is 53 years old and he's trying to figure out how to use Discord so he can ask his question. So shout out to you, because I tried to get BJ to copy and paste something the other day and that was impossible.
No, it's not happening.
So shout out to you for getting involved in the Discord. If you guys want to join, the link is in the description. He says, what's going on with the Bulls? Always doing well against the good teams, like last night against Denver, and struggling against weaker teams or blowing large leads. And are they going to make the playoffs / play-in? Very interested in your views. So thank you for the question. The Bulls, I feel like we've had this conversation a bunch of times. Aside from Alex Caruso, the Bulls for me worry me a lot defensively. at kind of all their other positions amongst their starting group. And then the biggest factor for me is that they don't have really a true point guard. I know they got Pat Bev recently, but they don't have that true point guard that Lonzo Ball would have been had he have been healthy. Because if you remember, way back when they had just signed DeRozan and Lonzo Ball, they were at the top of the Eastern Conference. The 4 or 5 months that they were all healthy, they looked like one of the best teams in the East. So now you're missing a huge chunk of your team that you signed in free agency that you thought would be a young building block to build around. And everything we hear about Lonzo is very worrying from health-wise. So that is one thing that really can't be, you can't predict that and you can't plan for that. So now it's about how they build on from here. BJ, what do you think about the Bulls?
Well, as you know, Mo, injuries are a part of the game, and you got to have health. And right now they are not healthy and they don't have a healthy roster. So, in addition to, Lonzo Ball having this, a physical element, we can't forget that Zach LaVine at the beginning of the season, we didn't know his health coming into this season. And right now they just seem to be kind of trying to figure out plug and play, who's healthy, so forth and so on. They just picked up Pat Bev to address the situation you just mentioned, which is their defense. And they were counting on Lonzo Ball. They're counting on Caruso and these guys. And when you can't keep the ball in front of you out there on the perimeter, it really puts your bigs at a disadvantage. So they've been kind of struggling all year to find a group that can get out there and defend, from night to night in this league and on a consistent basis. They don't have any problem scoring. You're talking about DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, Vucevic, they can score. So you can see when they have the proper matchups, especially for those guys on the wing and Vooch playing pick and pop and scoring the way he does, they can score. However, their biggest problem is stopping people. And they're trying to address that. They're really depending on, Lonzo Ball to do that. And when he was healthy, he did that. I mean, they had a great record. However, health has been their biggest concern. And you know what? That's sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So hopefully those guys can get back healthy, but it doesn't seem like they're coming back anytime soon.
What's interesting is that the Bulls defense statistically is actually very good. But if you put them on a nightly basis, you're not looking at them and you're really afraid of them. I got to shout out Patrick Williams as well, though, who has been a good defensive presence for them. And shout out to the guys there that are making the effort plays, because that's definitely picked up recently, especially since Pat Bev has come back and Caruso's got healthy again. They've actually had a great defense. But on the other side of things, do you see them making the playoffs? Do you see them making the play-in? Because, they've got a prime Zach LaVine, they've got an aging DeMar DeRozan, Vucevic looking for a new contract. These guys have got a lot to play for right now.
Well, make no doubt about it. I think this team wants to make the playoffs. I think the way they assembled this team, the way they're competing right down to the end, certainly they want to make it. Now, do I think they will certainly jump up to the 6th spot and get in? No, I think their best chance is getting in through the play-in game. And now that's anyone's game, I mean, if you're talking about them playing Toronto or Atlanta or Miami or somebody like that, I think I would probably select, the other teams, right? Miami for sure. I think Atlanta probably would have an advantage. And I would even say Toronto, maybe Washington, but those are anyone's games. That's why that's exciting, because anyone can win one game at any given moment. So do I think they're going to get in? Probably not. I don't see them jumping up to the 6th spot. That's a lot of games to make up. That's probably what 5, 6, or 7 games or so to make up at this point. However, I think their best chance is to play in the play-in, and that's anyone's game. But if you're asking me today, I don't think so.
Well, speaking of the 6th spot currently occupied by the Miami Heat, they didn't, in fact, win their game against the Cavs that we spoke about, with Jimmy Butler taking his midweek trip to Los Angeles. They actually lost a close one, only by 4 games. And Jimmy Butler, in fairness, put up 28 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. And he shot 57% from the field. So maybe he did figure something out on that plane journey. Who knows? By the way, breaking news, Kevin Durant is expected to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. So that's a good sign. That's less than the 4 to 6 weeks that they had originally reported. Next question comes from Andy Williams. Shout out to Andy. He says, on the back of Van Fleet's comments, did you see Van Fleet's comments after the last night's game?
I did not.
He is going to be receiving a hefty fine because he named Ben Taylor, the referee, and called him effing terrible in an explosive rant after the game. So
I did not. Okay.
Yes, there is going to be a big fine for him after the Toronto Raptors lost their last game. And Andy wants to know, given BJ's existing relationship with refereeing into account, because we all know how refereeing has affected your life, do players often feel personally targeted by officials? And why are certain players seemingly teamed up less than others?
Well, what I've tried to, I think I've shared this with you before. My dad was an official.
Yeah, I think that's what he means when he says, given your existing relationship.
Yeah, I know firsthand, and watching my father referee my entire life, when he misses a call, and referees make mistakes. They're human. They make mistakes. It really bothered him. Okay. I also know that my dad, who loves basketball just as much as I do, that's where I picked it up from, that it also bothers him when players makes mistakes. He's like, man, what's this guy doing? like he thought I wasn't going to see this travel, or he thought I wasn't going to see him push him in the back. Okay. So listen, making mistakes is part of the game. And the thing I try to practice, especially when there's a tough call at the late game, and I think without seeing I didn't see what Fred said. Probably the worst thing, and I don't know when he responded, was probably right after the game.
Post game.
So I always
press conference.
Yeah, so I always practice never comment about anything after the game, because when emotions are high, your rationale and things is very low. So I think it's very unfortunate that we allowed him to comment after the game, just like coaches should never come in and go on a in my opinion, tirade after the game. Executives shouldn't go in and talk to the coaches after the game. It's important for you to gather yourself, to eliminate your feelings and emotion. This game is played at a very, very, the emotions are very high. These guys, talking about Toronto, these are very competitive people, and what do you expect them to say? So I would hope that maybe Fred, who I'm a huge Fred fan, would say, okay, well, you know what? It was a tough call. The call could have went either way. That's where it happens.
So,
but always practice. I always tried to practice never to comment after a game, and I learned that from watching my dad, because I know how hard it was on him when he would miss a call. It bothered him. It really, really bothered him. So I have the greatest empathy for those guys, because they can get 99 calls right, and then the one call, and then. So
well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this though, because I watch every team. When you watch Draymond Green, for example, just an example off the top of my head, when you watch Draymond play, he gets away with a whole lot more than any other player would be allowed to get away with, whether it's the type of fouls, whether it's the barking at referees that other players would get technical for. They seem to just be like, oh, that's just Draymond. That's just how he plays. Why do some players get a longer tether than others when it comes to the referees? When a rookie does something, they're getting a whistle straight away. You saw Scotty Barnes the other day get ejected from the first game of his career. Why do some players get a longer level of patience from the referee?
That's a really good question, Ron. Well, this is what I've learned about referees and playing the game. The referees also scout the game. Okay. They also scout, and they also know how you play. So suddenly, let's say Mo is a finesse player, and suddenly he comes out and just start being real physical.
In my dreams, I could be a finesse player.
Okay. But okay. But all of a sudden now they're like, that's not how you play.
Okay.
The one thing that is consistent Okay. And the one thing you try to strive for as a player is I just want a consistent whistle. This is how we play. The most aggressive player always get the most consistent whistle. I'll say that again. The most aggressive player always gets the most consistent whistle.
Yeah. And also, I feel like on some level, not like a conspiracy or anything, but the bigger name player it is, the fans are at the game to see them play. If they really whistled every foul on Draymond, he might be out of game in the first quarter. So
okay,
I guess
I'll say this.
But let me ask you this:
the best players in our league are the most aggressive players.
Yeah, but let me ask you this, BJ. Did you ever have a game where you just felt like, man, the ref has got something out for me today? That no matter what you did, you felt like you were being targeted by a referee, the same way Fred VanVleet felt the other night against the Clippers.
I don't, because I know it goes the other way too. Mo, it's been really nice. Mo, okay, all right. If you've never committed a foul, raise your hand. Mo, okay. Everything again. If you are aggressive, Mo, if you are an aggressive player, the best players are the most aggressive players. If you are aggressive, you are going to toe the line on fouls almost every play.
Okay, give me your starting five of all NBA all aggressive team. Of the players that can do this. So Draymond Green's got to be there.
Draymond's there.
Marcus Smart has to be there.
Smart is Marcus Smart is there. Giannis is there. Giannis. You can call a foul. You can call a foul on him every play. Come on, Marcus Smart fouls like every play.
Who else? We got two more spots.
Okay.
We need a guard and a five. I feel like Pat Bev. Drew Holiday
is a very aggressive player,
but he's very, very smart with it. Like he knows.
You could call it however you want.
There's some players though that like they know where the referees are stood at all times. They know what the ref's looking at, etc., etc. So they get away with more. And some players,
he's an aggressive player,
blatantly aggressive. You see what I'm saying?
Pat Bev, he's an aggressive player. He's aggressive.
What about the centers?
Steven Adams is an aggressive player. He's an aggressive. Joel Embiid, he gets physical down there. Joel gets physical down there. Okay. Bam Adebayo. I'm gonna tell you. All right, wait a minute. You know who should be on this team is Jimmy Butler.
Yeah,
Jimmy Butler should be on the team, right? Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler. I'm placing Jimmy Butler ahead of
4, and we'll put Draymond at the 5.
Yeah. Jimmy, but it's not. I don't have a problem with that because now the referee saying, "Well, that's how he plays," and as long as he doesn't have an advantage, you don't call the foul. The game is a very physical game. You know what's interesting about the game today? The offensive players in this era are more aggressive than the defensive players because they're all looking.
You can't be as aggressive defense. There's no hand check-in. There's the rules.
That's what I'm saying. So the rules have changed. So the offensive players are the ones initiating all the contact. They're the ones who are like finding bodies to hit. Well, before the defensive guys were the ones who were initiating the contact. Now the offensive players are the ones pushing off, the ones who are, doing that up and under move, whatever that move is called.
Yeah, and then they hook the arm from below as well. Yep.
Yeah. So, Jimmy Butler, Bam, certain teams just play that way. All right. Your Boston Celtics. I mean, those guys are I love it. I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for the physicality because you got to be physical. Draymond Green, I'm all for that. If you want to win in this league, you better be the most physical team. And then the referees will adjust. They will adjust. Now, as long as you can toe the line and you're more physical than the other guy, and the other guy's always calling and begging for a foul, at some point, the referee, it's only natural to be like, come on, man, play. It's just, so to me, that's the way the game should be played. And then what I love more than anything is in the playoffs, they let that whistle go.
Oh man, it's the
That's
best.
why.
I want
That's
every game to
why
be
I
ref like
look.
that.
That's why. Exactly. That's why I think it's important to establish. I think it was my guy Harry. Harry and I are saying start doing it now in game 1, and then the teams will be like, "Well, that's just how they play." And then when the playoffs start, you won't have any problems adjusting to it. So to me, it just increases your chances to play, because the teams who are the most physical, more times than not, they have the most success in the playoffs.
I hear it. Well, that's another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast. BJ, any plans for the weekend?
Oh, little basketball, Mo.
We got some matchups.
That time of the year.
We got some.
Well,
we
I
got
tell
some
you what,
matchups.
I get
any games you got your eye on? I've got a few.
I do. Well, I'm going to the games this weekend. I'm going to go to the games this weekend. I'm going to watch the Knicks are in town. I want to go see the Knicks
to play the Clippers.
They're in town, and I think Toronto plays the Clippers. I think one of these nights as well.
Yeah, that's Friday night. No,
Friday night. Yeah,
no, that's the Lakers. That's the Lakers.
Lakers in Toronto. So I'm going to go see Toronto, catch up with your guy Masai, and see what's going on. I'm gonna sit down with Fred before the game and say, "Hey, Fred, come on, let it go." If I can drag my dad to the game, maybe my dad and I'll go and we'll talk to him. And I'll say, "Hey, Fred, my dad's a referee, and make the guy feel bad.
So we'll go on to OG as well. But I think there's some interesting matchups. The Bucks and the Warriors is always a good one. The Kings and the Suns play on Saturday night. That's one I got my eye on. There's a whole lot of interesting games around the NBA, and things have changed so drastically. Like Thursday night, I'm looking at Bucks Nets, and I was really excited. And then I remembered Kevin Durant isn't going to be on the Nets against Giannis on the Bucks. Yeah. So it's all chopping and changing. That Knicks Clippers game should be good. That's a little early tip off for us. We've got the Mavericks and the Grizzlies. That should be fun as well. And then Sunday, we got the Nets and the Nuggets. Nice early tip off. And some other early tip offs. We've got the Cavs, the Hornets, Warriors, Sixers, Pelicans, Blazers. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
We got a little basketball coming, but it's that time of the year. It's time to start gearing it up. To gear it up a little bit.
And then
when got a nice win today.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. We're just waiting for the postseason. But when does March Madness begin? Because it's the 10th of March. I'm ready.
Like a week. It's like a week. I think they play the conference tournaments or something this week.
Yeah.
And then starting next week, they'll start up. So
all right. Well, you guys,
little Final Four extra.
You guys get some rest this weekend, because we're going to be back on Monday with more from the Hoop Genius podcast. And if all goes to plan, we're going to have a very, very special interview on this show next week. And that's all I'm going to say.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Until next time, my good people, subscribe, tell your friends, leave a comment and all that. And most importantly, get buckets.